Hey everyone, Big D here, Dave Wallinga, drummer for the Sixth Generation. Welcome Artist House and all of the people that are watching today. Welcome to my home. You're in my drum studio and you're not going to see a lot of it today because it's kind of messy, but it's kind of how I roll, I guess you'd say. But we're going to have a good time. We're going to talk a little bit about the Sixth Generation. We're going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm going to play two of our original tracks, so I think you'll really enjoy it. But I got started in music back probably when I was 13, so let's go back to 1963. And I actually wanted to be a drummer first off. I knew immediately I wanted to be a drummer, always wanted to be a drummer. I can remember my grandparents sitting on their floor playing with spoons and pans and beating on them. But when it came time to actually start music, and I was fortunate this way, the gentleman that came to sell musical instruments to my parents' house did not sell drums. So he said I could play clarinet, I could play saxophone, or I could play trumpet or cornet, because that's what he sold. So I chose cornet, and boy am I glad I did, because that opened up a whole new vista for me and gave me a great foundation musically. So I started with that, then I moved to what's called a baritone, which is a counter melody instrument, and that's where I met the General Paul Davies. So we were probably, I'm guessing 13, 14. We'd ride our bikes to each other's house, we'd go fishing by the river. It was really a lot of fun back in those days, and so General and I have been friends for forever, just forever. And so musically we started out in the junior high school band, orchestra, marching band. Then from there we went on to the high school band. But he played tuba and I played baritone. And like I say, they were the harmonies to the lead players in the marching band. And I really believe, in general, and I've talked about this, that that's what really helped develop our ears for harmony and for vocals later on. Little did we know at that time. So it was about that same time, 1964, where I still knew I wanted to be a drummer. And then when I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I saw Ringo, and by the way, Ringo's picture's right there, I said, boy, that's what I want to do. Not only do I want to play drums, but I want to play drums in a band. So being in the day, we didn't have, can you imagine, no computers, no internet, no iPhones, no YouTube. It was grab a record, listen to what they were playing, figure it out from that point. So my mom and dad were great in a way. They had, I guess, maybe more of a vision than I had. They bought me a little set of drums, started out with just a snare drum and a hi-hat. No bass drum or anything, and that's what I started out with. Developed there to borrowing sets from guys and trying to learn again, what do I do? How do I do it? Dick Clark, Ed Sullivan. You had to watch TV to see what drummers were doing. So you'd see guys like Gene Krupa, and his name slipped me. I'll come up with it later on. But you watch the old drummers, the big band drummers. You're sitting there going, well, that's not the kind of music I play, but I see how they hold their sticks and I see how they play. See how the drums are set up. I had no idea how to set a drum set up. So in 64, 65, I started to get together with three other gentlemen, and we started a band called the Vampires. Eventually General came over, or Paul Davies came over to be our bass player. So Paul and I started playing music together probably in 65. That's what we think. Before that in the marching band, and the high school band, and the junior high school band, but making rock and roll music together probably in 1965. Started with the Vampires, and then in 1966 we, for some reason, I don't remember why, because we're still friends with the guys in the Vampires, but we went over to Buchanan. We wanted to start another band. We went to Buchanan. We ran into John Dale Hoover, our lead guitar player forever, and John then became the third member. I'm not sure the progression from there, but I think it was Fred Bachman next, our lead singer, JJ, and then to round out the six of us to begin with was Dale Chatterton. And isn't it tough getting old? Alan Hadsel on piano. So we started the sixth generation in July. The name actually came in July of '66. Although we were playing before that, we were under the Boys Next Door, we were under the Outcasts, we were under several names. Matter of fact, won or placed in some Battle of the Bands prior to the actual name sticking. So the sixth generation, we were sitting around a table and we said, how can we call our name? What should we call ourselves? And we said, well, there's six of us and we're playing our generation's music. Sixth generation. So for all of you who have wondered for the years why there are five of us and we were called the sixth generation, that's it. At the time we named the band, there were six of us. But not too long after that, we realized that the personnel we had, although good, it wasn't a perfect match. And enters Ron Hamrick. And so Ron entered the band sometime in 1967, if I'm not mistaken. So it was Ron Hamrick piano, Fred Bachman on lead singer, and he played a little guitar, John Hooverdale on guitar, Paul the General Davies on bass guitar, and myself, Big D, on the drums. Back in those days, not called Big D. I might share with you later what my nickname was. So we progressed then to become a band, practiced really hard, started getting some great gigs. And it wasn't really until we reformed and had the reunion that we realized what an impact we had made musically to the people that were around us. We thought it just the opposite. We thought they were impacting us by allowing us to play music for them. And it was such a great experience. So shortly after we got started, we became the house band for a club. Boy, it was a loose term. It was a concrete block building up in Dowagiac, Michigan at 5 Mile Corners. And it was right next to Lutz's Drive-In and the outdoor movie theater, the 5 Mile Movie Theater. And it was called the Skyliner. Became the house band for the Skyliner. Marie became our manager who owned it. And what a great time we had there. What a learning experience. Because we got to play once or twice a week, week in and week out, all through the summer and some through the winter. And you really get to be good at what you're doing. Get good in setting things up, knowing where to stand, knowing how to present yourself to the audience. You wanted the audience dancing and having a party. It was a fun time. And so that's where we learned how to do that. So it was the five of us. Then in '67 we recorded This Is the Time. And by the way, I'm going to be playing a little later on at the end of this, This Is the Time and Glitter and Gold. So the two songs that we recorded in Chicago. I can't even imagine it till the day we went into Chicago to sound studios. Michigan Avenue, if any of you have been to Chicago. So here we are, probably 16 years old. I don't think I'd turned 17 yet, so I was 16, and General was 16. And we drive into Chicago, and we go up in this big building, and we're right on Michigan Avenue looking out the windows, and we record This Is the Time, which became a regional hit for us, and so blessed that Ron Hamrick and Fred Bachman had written such a good song. And Glitter and Gold, a song that we picked up from the Turtles, and we really liked it. I thought we did a great job. One of my favorite songs that we've done. You'll hear that a little later on. So from there, we recorded, got the record released, put recording artist at the bottom of our picture, which I always thought was kind of a nice touch, and started to play bigger venues, opening up for national acts, and I don't know if I can remember all of them, but Buckingham's a couple of times, the Detroit Wheels, the Kingsmen, Louie Louie. That was the first gig, I think, that Fred Holtz, who came in to take Ron's spot. Ron was headed off to college, and he was in college down at Ball State, and it was more towards Indianapolis. So he had a couple hours down drive to there. If we were playing in Niles, then he could make it after class. But we were playing north a lot, up near Grand Rapids, which was another 2 hours. And it just got to be too much. So Ron made the right decision, decided to go to school, and then Fred Holtz, or who we called Geo, came in on the band. And I think we saw him on a Saturday or Sunday, and we said, "Do you want to be in the band?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I want to be in the band." And we were excited. And we said, "Well, Saturday night we open up for the Kingsmen." So he had to learn our full sets, about 30 songs, in less than a week. So we put a lot of time in, but boy did we have fun. So we played with the Kingsmen. We played with the Box Tops later on, opened for them. How cool is that? The Electric Prunes, a band out of Canada called Bush, and it wasn't the Bush that we know that has been current, but back in those days. And so if you look up Canadian and you put in Bush band and I Can Hear You Calling, I'll never forget them playing that. Probably some of the best musicians we ever played with. I think I mentioned the Box Tops. We ended up with, very cool how things kind of work out. We signed a contract to do a show with a band out of Chicago we'd never heard of. And so we turned to the people, we said, "Well, we'll sign the contract, but who are we going to be playing with?" They said, "Well, you're going to be opening for a band called the Ides of March." We go, "Who are the Ides of March?" "Well, it's a band out of Chicago. You don't need to know any more than that, but it'll be fun." "Okay, fine." So we signed a contract, get all set up to do it, and like a week or two before we go on stage with these guys, Vehicle hits #1. So how neat was that, that all of a sudden you're going from this garage band to playing with an opening for a band that had a #1 hit single. So that was absolutely fun. We played also all over Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan. The club we played at down in Indiana a lot was called the Tippy Ballroom, or it's on Lake Tippecanoe, and it was a Tippy Ballroom, and it had huge crowds. They would drive in from all over, and huge crowds, and that's where we played with the Buckinghams and the Prunes and Bush, and it was such a good time. And we went from, are you ready for this, from an opening act to actually being the headliners. And again, it wasn't until years later that really sunk in what we had done. So instead of supporting the acts, we had bands opening for us at this tremendous regional venue, and we felt so blessed. So a great time was had by all, and then the eventual band went from the 5 of us, and then again with Ron going off and Fred Holtz joining the band, and then Freddie Bachman, he was at Michigan State, and so then it was General and I, who have been there forever, and Geo, and John Dale, or Hoover, who again has always been our guitar player. So it was a lot of fun, and we finished up with the 4 of us, and what a tight group that was. We've been together now for so many years that the tail end of the band was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. We had a set list, our second set, and I really wish I could get that set list back. We played a 45-minute set, and it was always our second set, and it was seamless. There was not any space between songs. We transitioned from Cream to Motown to slow songs to Spinning Wheel, and all of these different songs without ever having a break. We played 45 minutes, solid music, and that was kind of our trademark back in those days. And by the way, back in the day, we were making a lot more money than bands are today in 2019 for performances. As far as local bands go, we were making so much more, almost double, sometimes triple what they'd make today just as a four-piece band back in the late 60s. So that's, again, a little bit of my background. Oh, by the way, I went on to play marching band also in college. And like I say, encourage your kids, encourage the schools to keep the music education programs going. It made such a difference to me personally. And I'm speaking now for Paul Davies. I'm speaking for Fred Bachman, Fred Holtz, and for Ron, who came out of the choral program at the school. Gio actually went on to sing for the, I'm probably not going to get this right, but the Grand Rapids Symphony, and actually has sung at Carnegie Hall. So it's amazing on how things like this take you places. And on another video, we'll talk about the Sixth Generation 2.0 and some of the incredible things that happened to us when we got the band back together. But right now, I tell you what, let's do. I'm going to say goodbye, and what we're going to do is we're going to listen to two of the songs that we recorded when we went into Chicago. That's how we put recording artist on our photo. And the first one's going to be This Is the Time, which became our regional hit, and Glitter and Gold. And I think you'll enjoy both of them. And in there will be some posters and some old photos, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and thank you for having me in your home. And see you later from Maryland.
Hey, 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 hey. Is this the time? Will you be mine? Girl, I want to be with you forever. Not knowing when, not knowing whether. Just as long as we can be together. I know that my love, I know that my love is strong enough. Say you'll be mine, and it's okay. Hey, 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 hey. Is this the time? Girl, please be mine. Baby, won't you please stop keeping me waiting? There's really no need for hesitate. Now when we could have us such a sweet love. If you would love me, if you would love me, then you'll see. Say you'll be mine, and it's okay. Hey, 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 hey. Please don't ever say goodbye. Never hurt me or make me cry. If you would just try.